Hi, everybody. It's July 9th, 2025, and this is part of a video journal in my recovery from the trauma of watching my little brother, Paul Kierans, 64, with Down syndrome, be locked up by the BC New Democratic Party government with the leader, David Eby, for 588 days, and then he died. After he died, the government, through the guardian that they had appointed, my 82-year-old Catholic nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario, went after me. So they took away all Paul's rights, and then he died. I have a potentially life-threatening cardiac condition. I had a heart attack in November of 2016. So they went after me to take away my rights and have me declared a vexatious litigant. I practiced law for about 23 years in Greater Vancouver with no problems. And I tried very hard to have my brother's rights restored. He begged me. We were allowed a 10-minute telephone call once a week. So I was basically up against the government of British Columbia and the Catholic Church, who I estimate spent $1.5 million on the representation for the nun. And then, of course, they had the BC government on its side. But I thought, I'm such a good lawyer. I've gone up against the government before, and I've won before. And I have won on behalf of disabled adults before. But they locked Paul up for 588 days, and then he died alone. And then they went after me and removed my rights and had me declared a vexatious litigant in my absence. I'm only allowed to appear in court now for 2 hours a day by the order of my cardiologist and my family doctor. But the nun brought me to court, and the judge ignored these medical certificates from my family doctor and my cardiologist, saying I could only appear in court for 2 hours a day, which no other judge has done, by the way. No other judge has ignored those restrictions. And her name is Justice Judith E. Hoffman. So she went ahead 2 half days and 2 full days, and then declared me a vexatious litigant in my absence. And not only that, she said in the court order, she signed a court order that said that I was there, which is a lie. I was not there. Everybody agrees I was not there. I left after 2 hours on the second day. So now I'm preparing for my application for leave to appeal, permission to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada, which is, I think, the 4th application for permission to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada I've done in the last 5 years. It may be 3. This may be the 3rd, but I just have lost track. But so I went downtown and worked the Vancouver Courthouse Library yesterday just to give me a little bit of focus. And there's some things that I saw that I'm so disturbed. I mean, it's like this Kafkaesque nightmare that I'm living in Canada, and particularly in British Columbia. 15,000 people have died of drug overdoses since David Eby's NDP government took over. And many of them killed with drugs supplied, so-called safe drugs supplied by this evil government. Like, to say evil, it's a depopulation. That's basically what the goal is of Canadian governments now, particularly the NDP Liberal coalition in Ottawa and the NDP governments in British Columbia. But what brought it home was that when I went to McDonald's downtown, my normal McDonald's that I go to in downtown Vancouver, it just looked like this surreal other world. And there was a young woman, nice-looking young woman with long dark hair, dressed relatively nicely, collapsed in half on the floor of the McDonald's that I was in, by the front door, inside the McDonald's, just collapsed, like out cold, in half. And I think they call that the meth bend. So people who are addicted to methamphetamines get this strange posture where they're bent in half. They look like zombies bent in half. So I thought, I'm not going to walk past this person and not say anything. So I went to the staff and I just said, there's a person who's collapsed by your front door. And then when I was on the SkyTrain into Vancouver, this young man raced to catch the SkyTrain, and he put his fingers in the door and he held the door open, even though you're not supposed to do that. And he got on with a bicycle or an e-bike. And he did the same thing. The entire trip from Coquitlam into Vancouver, he was bent in half. Totally surreal. Vancouver's filthy. I can remember arriving in Vancouver to live in the fall of 1973, and we would go down to East Hastings and go to the Pantages Theatre down there. You could watch 3 movies for $10. So on Hastings, near Hastings in Maine, there was the Pantages Theatre, and the streets looked, they looked old. They looked, they were, I think they're about 125 years old at that point. They looked old, but they were clean, and people were walking around normally. You go down there now, the shops are all boarded up with graffiti on them. Tents line the streets. It's revolting. You wouldn't walk through there. When I was working as a parking enforcement officer, they didn't even bother enforcing the parking meters along there because it was so dangerous and so filthy, and nobody would want to park there. So I'm trying to just screw up the courage and the stamina to finish this last leg, hopefully, of my journey. I hope I'm granted leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada what the judge did when she declared me a vexatious litigant. So that takes away all my rights, like the basic rights you have to defend yourself. And the judge at the Court of Appeal said, it just means you can't start a new action against somebody. No, it doesn't mean that. I cannot file an affidavit in court to defend myself like you could or anybody could. And that's because I tried to enforce my brother's freedom after 588 days. So this afternoon, I'm going to a barbecue for the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I worked my ass off for Hamed Najafi and the Conservative Party of British Columbia in the election last October. And I honestly believe that the election was stolen from the Conservative Party of British Columbia. And I'll tell you why. I'd been through law school. I was in the top third of my class. I got the top mark by far in computers in the law. And there are some things that should never be done by computer. One of them is counting election ballots and scrutinizing election ballots. And David Eby, the leader of this evil New Democratic Socialist Dirty Commie Party, he was the Attorney General of British Columbia. He changed the election rules so the election ballots could be scanned and counted by computers. Once those ballots go into the scanning machine, they're lost forever. You can make up any algorithm you like to get the results that you want. And he's a dirty, evil commie controlled by the Communist Party of China, as we can see by his recent purchase of crappy ferries made with crappy Communist Party steel from China, spending British Columbia taxpayer dollars. And so even if you wanted to vote for the Conservative Party of British Columbia, it wouldn't have made any difference because they would have screwed up and skewed the votes to computer algorithms to get whatever result they wanted. And it took 2 additional weeks. India, the most populous country on earth, counted its election in 1 day. And British Columbia, with its computer scanned ballots, took 2.5 weeks. and the election is still in dispute. So my beautiful province of British Columbia, my beautiful country, the most endowed, beautiful country on earth, has been destroyed by evildoers. And you can look at on the large scale and see the terrible gross domestic product per person plummet below that of Mississippi's. That's the best indicator of the economic health of a nation, is gross domestic product per person. And Canada, the Mississippi's is around 50, and Canada has gone down to 35 under these evil, dirty commie governments. And we're just being torn apart, ripe for the picking as a 51st state or whatever. It's a choice between the Communist Party of China and the United States. But it all comes down to seeing that beautiful young woman collapsed in front of her, and everybody walking past her as if it was the most normal thing on earth. Anyways, this afternoon I'm going to volunteer at the Conservative Party of British Columbia, John Roosted's Conservative Party of British Columbia's barbecue and then leadership review. And that's how I'm going to spend my afternoon. But this message is for John Roosted. If you can't help me, one single retired woman who's contributed her whole life to the betterment of British Columbians, if you can't help me, how the hell do you think you're going to help all of British Columbia? I've written you every single day asking for help. The CBC does not respond. The CTV does not respond. No mainstream media or even Rebel News. I met with Drea Humphreys of Rebel News in front of the courthouse. I begged her to help with my case against the isolation and confinement of my brother. And she said, yeah. If it's real people with real problems, nobody gives a damn. And I'm watching my beautiful country. I'm almost 70. I'll soon be 70. And I'm watching, within my lifetime, the most beautiful, endowed country on earth is being flushed down the toilet. And all its citizens with it. Wake up, people. Wake up.